falling asleep, or getting up, or walking, or standing, or attending to the nature's call, or talking to people, or keeping silent, doing anything. Why? Because this is how we know. This is where we know. This is exactly where we know how things are. When we stand, we just not stand there. We stand with the body, but the body has feelings. Sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant. Also the mind is working. Mind is generating certain thoughts, maybe good, maybe not good. But if we aren't applying the mindfulness here and now, then we will never know. The mind has been so accustomed to go outside. So these six senses, eye is there, ear and the nose, tongue, body and mind. And then there are these corresponding objects. The sound, the visible things, the sound, smell, taste, touch sensation and the thoughts. So mind is my life, all the time we are busy attending to these things. But then it arises a feeling of liking at times, and then after some time it changes, it gives rise to another feeling of disliking, and again another feeling of liking. Sometimes it's gross, sometimes it's subtle, but this is continuing all the time. So when we apply, when we are aware here and now at this moment, then we have some idea. We have idea that this is how dissatisfaction arises here and now. This is how we know. When a person who's addicted to alcohol, say for example, every day he drinks, gets drunk, falls here, falls there, fights with this person, fights with that person. So he's intoxicated. He has no way, no chance of knowing that his behavior, his conduct is not up to the mark. He's ruining his life, he's ruining his body, he's ruining his mind. He has no chance of knowing because there is an addiction of alcohol. Similarly, our mind is addicted to grasping things that we like, grasping things that we do not like. So mind has no chance. Like the way alcohol addict or a drug addict has almost no chance of knowing, recognizing, acknowledging that his mind is under the influence of these things. His body is also under the influence of these things. Has no way of knowing, no way of recognizing. Similarly, the people, if we aren't being mindful, if we are just mindlessly doing things, then we have also no chance of knowing. That's why Lord Buddha gave this mindfulness, being aware. This is wonderful if we apply it even a little. That's why I said, even we are able to see even one breath clearly, one in-breath and out-breath clearly, that's also very good. Because then we know the nature of life. When we know a few breaths, what is the nature of the life? Just like the nature of the breath, what is the nature of the breath? To come and to go. One goes inside and then it goes outside. And then another goes inside and goes outside. What is it? To rise and fall. To arise and pass away, that's the nature of breath. When we gradually see this, little by little, then we understand this is just the nature of this body, this is just the nature of this life. Like this breath, no big deal. Just like this breath. If we know the breath clearly, we know how we live, what is the nature of our life. So, wisdom, that's how it arises, little by little. No wisdom is small. No wisdom is small because initially it arises here and there, maybe a little. Wisdom is what? Wisdom is when we know directly as things really are. Not by reading, not by intellectualizing, not by merely contemplating, but by seeing. Knowing the breath to rise and fall. That much if you know, it's your wisdom that stays with you. And then as you strengthen this wisdom, as you gradually make it stronger and stronger, then it gets established in your heart. This is the wisdom, this is the kind of practice that we can gradually do. But at the same time, we also must keep in mind, we shouldn't be like those people who would always ask, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Then it's not the right way of practicing. We must be patient. We must do our things, but we also must be patient. If we are doing it correctly, then no need to be so much bothered. It will gradually give the results. But don't have to be restless. So today, here, you all are here on this full moon day, Magha full moon day. It's a very special day. On this day, 1250 enlightened monks, 1250 enlightened monks, they were all personally ordained by Lord Buddha himself. These enlightened monks, and they were all his first disciples. So when King Bimbisara, he was the first one to offer give a dana of a monastery to Lord Buddha. First lay person to offer. That is the Veluvana Bamboo Grove Monastery, which still exists in Rajgir. So Lord Buddha at that time was staying there after meeting King Bimbisara, who was the king of Magha, and then he offered this monastery, and then Lord Buddha started staying there. And then these monks, 1250 of them, visited him. And the unique thing is, they didn't coordinate with each other. Each of them came separately on their own. They didn't, it's not like there was a group of 10 monks, okay, we'll go and meet Lord Buddha. It's not like. Each of them was staying in separate places, and on their own, they had a wish to visit Lord Buddha on this full moon day. These 1250 enlightened monks, all were personally ordained by Lord Buddha himself. Ehi Bhikkhu. So people when they develop their spiritual merits, for example, people offering the 8 requisites of the monks, these bowl and the robe and this needle and all these things. So the basic requisites of the monk, people go and offer, and then they say they make a determination, may by the power of this dana, may by the power of these wholesome actions, may I in a future Buddha's time receive direct ordination from the Buddha himself. So these monks, they came on their own. They all got ordination like that from Lord Buddha. They were staying in different places. They were all fully enlightened. They came over on this Bamboo Grove Monastery in Rajgir, Rajagaha. In those days it was called Rajagaha. And on this day, when these monks assembled, Lord Buddha gave 3 verses, which we call Ovada Patimokha, which is, you can say, the gist of the entire teaching. So the first verse, it says, Sabba Papasa Akaranam, refraining from all evil things. Kusalasa Upasampada, developing good things. Sachitta Pariyodapanam, and purifying one's mind through spiritual practice. Etan Buddhana Sasana. This is the teaching. This is the sum and substance of the Dhamma. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So if you see this verse, we often recite it, and it's very commonly known by people, monks and lay people alike. So first thing he says, to cut down on the tendencies of wrong things. Whatever. He didn't start with saying, do good, no. It's a unique thing. Why did Lord Buddha not start with saying, do good? He said, cut down on your evil first. Then do good. Why? Because you take the example. You have a big bowl full of milk, and some maybe like a lime juice or something that falls a little bit, even a drop of it. It is good enough to spoil the milk. So that's how the unwholesome tendencies, evil tendencies are. So if we are able to do good things, but at the same point of time, if we aren't cutting down on the unwholesome things, then the power of goodness never grows strongly within us. It always remains, it's like a person. Take the example of a person who goes to gym, exercises for some months. But then, at the same point of time, he is very, has no control over his tongue. Ends up eating all kinds of junk food. So whatever weight he reduces, he again gains it. So there is no chance of him getting healthy in the long run. Or anything like this. So the doctor, when you are sick, they go to the doctor gives you certain medicines, you need to take these things. Avoid maybe when you have a stomach upset, avoid oily food, spicy food. Doctor says like that. You take the medicine, but you also do not stop taking oily and spicy food. Then you don't really get better much. So that's the value of developing goodness, but before developing, simultaneously, not before, simultaneously cutting down on the evil tendencies. Because then the goodness is real, then the goodness is strong and powerful. Otherwise, the goodness is somehow like little here, little there. It's never that powerful. So that's why Lord Buddha started saying, let go of the evil tendencies. Whatever evil, whatever unwholesome akusala you have, try to cut them down. Whatever, and then simultaneously develop the good tendencies. So if we do like this, then it grows. If you have a nice bowl of milk, very thick milk, you can use it for making sweets, you can drink it, you can prepare some dishes, whatever you want. But then if the milk is spoiled by something small but significant, then that milk might not be much useful to you. If you have, like, you go buy a big can of mineral water, and then a little bit of poisonous substance falls into that. It's not fit to consume. You have to throw it away. So that's why people must, while they are trying to develop goodness, must also look into whatever unwholesome tendencies we have and try to cut them down. Then it is the powerful, real, true goodness that we can develop. You might have come across a lot of people. People who have become successful, or some of them went on to become, say, millionaires. But then their lives, their own personal lives, not so good. not so wholesome. So outside world they have done a lot of things, helping other people, which is good. Doing charities or helping people or in certain ways. But then, if you look into the quality of their mind, it's still not good enough. Why? Because all the good things and bad things, all the wholesome and unwholesome, whatever we develop here in our life, who possesses them? This hand, this leg, this head? Nothing, none of these. But then our mind is aware of them. Our mind possesses them. Our mind carries them, the good tendencies and the bad ones. They are not carried by the hands and legs and kidneys and livers. No, they aren't. But they are carried, all these tendencies are carried by the mind. So ultimately, whatever goodness we develop, say for example, people sometimes vouch by Mr. Steve Jobs. He was the founder of Apple. Then, but his own daughter, first daughter, I guess, wrote a book where she wrote that for a long time he wasn't even willing to recognize her as his daughter. When he grudgingly recognized at a much later time, he wasn't still good to her. So then, it isn't a very right example. No? It isn't a very noble example. If you have a relationship, and if a child borns out of that relationship, then they should have the courage to recognize. Okay. Then you are a dignified man. Okay. But then, okay, you are living in denial. You may be a billionaire, but you are still living in denial. So what kind of example will he set? Will he set for other people? It's not a really wonderful example. No? For normal people, we'll say, okay, such so person is corrupt. But when it is Steve Jobs, we'll just keep quiet. Oh, maybe. No, that's not how we look into things. It's all the same. Goodness, whether it is a prince or a pauper, goodness is good. Whether it is a billionaire, badness is bad. That's all. We don't have to be like this. Whatever good we see, we recognize and appreciate. Whatever bad we see, we also recognize and we do not appreciate. So that's how we develop our practice, our inner practice. Then our practice is good, because then we are being honest with ourselves. We don't have dishonesty within our heart. Whatever I do, I am the first one to recognize whatever good. I'm the first one to appreciate. I don't hide, or I don't try to do anything else. If I see something which isn't perfect, which isn't good, which isn't proper, which isn't appropriate, I am the one who says, acknowledges this is not right. Then our heart will grow in the right direction. So that's what exactly Lord Buddha was saying. Evil tendencies, if you have, it's not a problem, but you must make sure you cut them down gradually. Don't get stuck, don't encourage them. This is exactly what, when people are trying to follow the sila, morality, many times they do, but sometimes they aren't able to. What we suggest, what we advise, it's okay. Maybe you have spoken a lie out of some compulsion, or it isn't good, but then you have done, it's not the end of the world. But then you must acknowledge this is something you need to ultimately cut down. That acknowledgement should be there. That recognition should be there. Then our goodness will grow. If you have a field, agricultural field, and then you plant, you till it nicely. After tilling, put water and manure and things, and then you put the seeds, and then it starts growing, and then along with this, some weeds also come. Huh? But then what you say is, oh, these weeds, these are nice green leaves. What's wrong with them? Let them be, along with the crops, let them be. Then you are not recognizing the danger in them. Because ultimately, they will destroy your good crops. That's always the case. So, when we develop our goodness, we develop like this. So, these verses and the remaining two verses, mostly concerned with the monastic life, how monk's life should be. There's Kanti Paramam Tapotirika, patience, being patient. Patience is a very wonderful thing. Not being patient sometimes people would say when a dog is bitten by some people, or people throw stones at it. Sometimes the dog goes and sits in one corner. Not exactly that kind of patience Lord Buddha was telling us to develop. He was telling us to develop patience with wisdom. Why do we practice patient endurance? Because we don't necessarily allow our unwholesome tendencies, our hatred, our aversion, our evil tendencies to come up. Because of that, we do this. We endure with this anger, we endure with these unwholesome tendencies. It's not we endure with other people, we endure and let go our own badness, our own evil things. So that's how it is. So how we should practice patience and moderation in diet, which is such a wonderful thing for everybody. Moderation in diet, it's such a wonderful thing. Lord Buddha said always, Bhojana Matyanyam, Bhojana. Eat, but eat in moderation. So many people suffer because of some sickness or the other because they don't eat in moderation. But if you eat, but eat in moderation, then it's a wonderful thing. That itself is like a medicine. That itself is the biggest medicine. So eating in moderation and being devoted to one's spiritual practice and all these things. How should one develop gradually? But then it all starts where? It all starts with a tendency to put things down. Evil things, put evil things down, set them aside, not to encourage them, not to be delighted in them, let them go. That's where it starts. So on this occasion, on this full moon day, and today is also the ordination day of Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana, the chief disciples. It's also their ordination day. On this full moon day, they were ordained. And also the day on which Lord Buddha declared in Vaisali that from 3 months from now, I will attain Mahaparinibbana at Kusinara. In those days they used to call Kusinara, now called Kusinara. So I will, in Vaishali, declare from 3 months from now, at the full moon day of Vaishaka, Tathagata shall attain Mahaparinibbana. So this Magha full moon day is a very, very significant because a lot of these things happened. A lot of the important. There are some other. But anyways, so the most important thing is this Ovada Patimokkha, which I told in brief. The avoiding, cutting down on our evil tendencies, developing goodness, and purifying our mind through the practice of meditation, practice of mindfulness. This is the sum and substance of the teaching of the Buddha. So if you carry these things, and if you remember, recollect, these verses are available everywhere, so you can also read them in many books. And maybe you can try to remember this, at least this one verse. What is the sum and substance of the teaching of the Buddha? All 84,000 discourses that he gave, what is the sum and substance? This is, he himself says, Etan Buddha Anusasana. This is the gist of the teaching. Avoid evil, develop good, purify your mind. This is the teaching. This is the Dhamma. So with this, with this Dhamma gift, we will conclude the discourse today.